Check podcasts.
The Bread and Butter Collective is a collection of hospitality professionals working together to help strengthen our industry to build strong culture, community, and sustainability.
I'm Calen McNeil.
And I'm Sam Jones. And this is the Bread and Butter Podcast.
Welcome to the Bread and Butter Podcast. How are you, Sam?
Calen, I'm great.
We're back, baby.
We're back. Oh, should we do it? High five?
High five.
Oh, yeah.
That was good. My hand is still stinging from the first high
First
five
four
that we did.
practices. You gotta look at the elbow. It's like we're so bad at high fives.
Oh, my God.
Goodness. Well,
Awkward.
Yeah, it's so nice to be back in the Czech studio. Super
Yeah.
producer
We
Kyle's
got
here.
Kyle, producer. Vivian's like on an extended holiday or something.
It's good to be back, guys. Good to have you back in the studio.
Yay. How was your summer, Calen?
Summer was good.
You were away, weren't you? You were
Well,
in Vegas?
my poker pilgrimage, which I do every year.
Poker pilgrimage.
We've done podcasts while I was in Vegas before.
I know, those are fun.
Yeah.
I like doing those.
So I was there. I don't know why I pick a hobby that's so grueling. Like, it's punishing.
Well, and you go for a long
Painful.
time. Like, you play for 5 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that?
Yeah, the series goes for 7 weeks.
Okay.
So I'm usually there. I've been in history in the past years. I've been there for the entire time. Usually like 5 to 6 weeks.
Yep.
This year I really wanted to only do like 3 to 4, but I was having a lot of success, so I ended up being there for 5 weeks, which was, yeah.
You know, I was thinking about you playing poker actually last week, not for any other reason than I was reading this book called Quit.
Oh, okay.
And I forget the author. My good friend Jeff George told me to read it because of a couple things I'm going through right now.
Yeah.
And it's called Quit. It's like how to let go of things in a positive way. And they talk
That's a great, what a good book suggestion.
Yeah, and they talk a lot about poker and poker players in it.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. It's a great kind of tie-in for business to poker to life. And this book is really good. I'll try to find out who the author is.
Yeah, well, I'll look it up too, because I think that, any book that kind of talks about, like, quitting is one of the hardest things to do, and doing it right. Well, as an entrepreneur, because you don't want to let go. And I think the tie-ins with there's so many business tie-ins with poker, just in game theory and strategy, and knowing, basically making decisions with very little information. And I've talked about this many times before, but the real thing this year for me was just managing expectations, but also your condition, like your fatigue. And then how do you get up the next day when you've just been crushed the night before, or had a bad result, and then you literally got to get up to start again every day. And I think that's a really good metaphor for entrepreneurship, is you just got to keep moving forward. So even, there was a point this summer where I just was like, what am I doing? Like, why am I punishing myself? Because there's a lot of luck involved. So you can make all the best plays and use all your skill and know exactly what hand the other person has and make the totally perfect play and still lose in the most brutal fashion when, like, all the money's on the line. And you're all of a sudden out walking away with a little tear running down your face. Because literally that happens.
Yeah,
and then you go back to the room and you just question life. And I think the only time I've ever felt that before is in business and in entrepreneurship and starting business and then having bad luck or something happen or dealing with a crisis or, and I found myself questioning why I'm doing this as a hobby. Like,
it's so similar to what you do in daily life, right?
Well, just the stress of it all. Like, obviously my business stresses are a lot less than they were when you're starting out or when you're going through these crises or even COVID, for example. But I'm like doing a hobby that I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the game. I love the challenge. I love the competition of it, but it's painful. Like, it's soul suckingly painful when you lose and when you totally out of your control. And then you just got to get up the next day and brush it off and get back at it. And that's literally what, an entrepreneur does every day.
when we were out for lunch the other day, you were talking about something that this book Quit talks about, and I don't know what it is in poker, because my idea of poker is twos and jokers are wild, right?
Yeah.
You got to run
Fiery
the flush,
cross.
right? Yeah. But the author, she was talking about a buyout in poker, and you were talking about how many buyouts you were doing like it was a good thing, and I didn't quite follow what it meant. And then when they were talking about it in the book in relation to quitting, and I don't know, have you got anything that you
I
can
think
fill
it
me in on
has to
that?
do with when you get down to the money and you're at the final table and you're playing. I mean, I played for millions of dollars first place prizes, and I played for $100,000. I played for $10,000, $5,000, $2,000, $1,000 first place prizes. So when you get down to the final table, all the money's in the top three positions. No different than the PGA. Like if you win the PGA Tour, like a tour event, you win $1.5 million, right? Or 2 million or whatever the event is. And then the prize pool goes down based on your finishes. So second place makes last, third place. So when you get down to the final, you've got all this money on the line and you're playing, like I've played like one heads up for like $100,000. So you're literally playing for $100,000 difference. So
Wow.
That's a lot of money. And some people play
is.
like in the main event, final main event, the first place was 10 million and second place was 6 million. So these people, and a lot of times they've never played for that kind of money ever before. So you're finding yourself at a table, you're making decisions that are worth $4 million, the difference. Like, so when you're second, you're still going to make 6 million. So great. Yay. But you're playing for 4. So very few people find themselves in that position, and then you're having to make decisions and you're fatigued. And so in those cases, a lot of times you'll do what they call a chop. So you'll split the prize pool based on your chip equity. So you'll make a decision to quit basically.
Okay.
And just take less money. But usually if you're second in this situation, it would be 6 million. You'd say, okay, let's play for $1 million instead of 4 million. So basically whoever wins would pay the other guy an extra $1 million. So then second place would get 7 million and first place would get 9 million. So then you're playing for 3 million instead of 4 million. So oftentimes there's these deals made. And I think in business, the relation to that is knowing when to get out. So basically you're selling your equity, basically, as if you're selling your company equity. So based on my chip stack, I have a certain equity. So say I have half the chips in play. I'm going to stand a better chance of winning that $4 million than the other person. But if he doubles up, then the equities are even. Then it's like, well, why don't we just split it? And then you're basically guaranteeing yourself a profit or a certain amount. Right. Or some people just say they never do deals and they go, we're playing for it. So if you don't care about money,
I relate to the second one. Just going for it.
Well, there's an element to that. Is like, okay, well, what's the difference? Like in the $4 million difference, that's life-changing money. Even though you've already made life-changing money at the point, that's a big number. But maybe the difference isn't life-changing money, and then you're like, okay, well, let me just split it. So I can guarantee more money than second place is worth, but not quite as much money as first place, but I can just seal the deal now.
Like I don't kind of like hedging your bets.
You hedge your bets. Like I've done deal, like the last tournament I won, there's 4 of us left and somebody proposed a deal and first place was 35,000. I ended up taking first for like 24,000. So once you negotiate down, everybody makes a little bit more. So the spread is different.
Right.
So it makes sense to do that because there's luck involved and you can lose. And, if third or fourth place at the time was like 13 grand.
But you have to be able to quit or you have to change your plan. And I guess we're relating that to business.
Yes. Yeah.
Quitting while you're ahead and knowing when you're ahead.
Well, and also knowing what a good deal is too, like based on all the information. Like at that point, you know everything. You know the players you're playing against. You know the conditions. You know how you're playing. You know their weaknesses. They know your weaknesses too. But then you get to evaluate, okay, well, am I the best player here? Do I stand a better chance? So then I'm going to want to get a better deal. Mm-hmm. So, but I think knowing when to get out in business is the most, knowing when to quit. Like I had a business years ago, an import business, and we were doing stuff in the water industry, like bottled water. And I had the business, and I don't know, I can't even remember what our sales were, but they're decent sales. They were growing, and we had a company offer us $3 million to buy it. And then, as time goes on, I'm like, no, I want to work and I can develop it. This is my dream. I was young. I would think I was 30 or something. So this was like 24 years ago, actually, 25 years ago. And I still had a career ahead of me. So I'm like, well, why do I want to sell? But then they offered us $2 million.
Yeah.
Then they offered us $1.5 million. Then they offered us $1 million. And eventually, because I was in a very tough industry where we started importing appliances from Asia, competing against General Electric and stuff, and then the currency evaluation and all this stuff. So I basically, ended up probably losing $100,000 total. I sold it for like $250,000. Right. And when all the dust settles,
where you could have made $3 million.
Yeah, I could have made.
But it's too early.
It is
because you weren't done.
Well, but I also didn't quite understand the risks. So when you're looking at this and someone's prepared to give you $3 million for your business, you can walk away with $3 million. That's like doing the deal at the poker table. You literally guarantee yourself whatever the deal is. Yeah. Now I can say yes and take this money, or I could say no and risk it. And that's
risk not getting anything or much less.
Yeah, or much less or more.
All of it.
Right?
Yeah.
So no different than negotiating a mortgage and trying to think about whether it's fixed rate or variable rate, and I got burned, knowing that that interest rates were going to go up 100%. I went variable instead of locking in at that low rate, and it's cost me thousands of dollars over the last couple of years. Yeah. But you make choices, and then there's consequences of those choices. So for me, I look back at that I think about that lesson a lot, because when you sell businesses or you get approached to have your business bought or you look to buy business, you're always evaluating what the present day value is, what the future value is, and then how much work it's going to take in between. And, for me, looking back on it, I was insane to say no at that time, because there's always the peak value. So only one of two things are going to happen is either it's going to go up in value and you're going to be happy you didn't sell, or it's going to go down in value and you're going to be like, oh my goodness. But saying no to that peak value, at the time it was a peak value for sure.
But at the time you didn't know it was peak value, because in your mind it was your baby, and why wouldn't it be worth $4 million next year? Because you're just going to grow the business a little bit more and it'll add value to it. But the value you see in your business is not the value that other people see in your business. And I think it was Dan Sullivan maybe said the only value to your business is the value that the check writer gives it.
Oh, 100%.
Right. Like, and that's it. That's the only value your
That's why
has.
When people sell houses,
or your
they're
product
in
general.
Like the market dictates what it's worth.
Yeah. Like you could not sell a burger for $100 right now.
No.
Unless someone really wanted your burger and was willing to pay for it, then that's the value of that one burger.
That's right. But at that one moment in time, but not the value of all the burgers.
Exactly. So knowing when to quit, you can't just look at that moment, and you can't be putting yourself in the driver's seat going, hey, everything's going to be just go up and up and up and up, because it may not. And the valuation of your company may not go up, even though you feel like it's doing better.
Well, and how much effort does it take after that? So say I sell the $3 million, I have zero effort after that. I've already recouped, I don't know how many years of profit that I could have even expected. And then what was I going to sell it for later? Right. You know what I mean? Like, would I have sold it for 3.2 million, or would 5 million or 10 million? Like, I'm in an industry that doesn't, it's not like I was in, like, I'm in a appliance industry effectively, and had this little water business effectively, but it wasn't like I was in IT, or there was,
it's not like you're in hospitality.
Oh yeah. Well, then you look at the hospitality valuations and you're like, oh my God, man, you're buying a business that you literally are going to have to grind, right, to make a profit. And the other thing too is understanding where the profit comes. So I was at the beginning of my career. I still had a lot of expectations that I wanted to learn a lot. I learned so much, like from that experience, even like Would it have been a $3 million value? No, but it was probably $1 million value of what I learned from going through that whole process, but also running the business and dealing with those challenges in the business. Like, you're going to get your lesson somewhere, and you're only going to ever get it from experience. Right. So what education and what your peers give you is advice and guidance and a base of knowledge, but everything else that happens is from experience. And this is why people make the same mistakes twice, or this is why when you give a peer advice or even your manager advice, they may or may not listen, because people really need to touch the stove, the hot stove, to learn, right. Like have it imprinted and go, oh yeah. Like how many times, like I see this with my wife, and I'm like, man, she says, why didn't you listen to me? I'm like, I'm going to start because you're almost always right. And I always don't listen to your advice, or I consider it, or, you know, and then fast forward, whatever the issue is, fast forward 2 months, and I'm just like, man, you're right.
You're right. Always.
You know,
it takes people 7 times to be told to do something before they actually clue into what it is they're being told.
Yeah.
7 times. So when you're frustrated at someone who's not listening to you, and I've told them 4 times already, you just relax and say, there's only you got 3 more times you have to tell them, and then they'll get it. And then if they don't get it after that, that's their problem.
Well, and knowing that it's going to take 7, so you know the landscape, you know, okay, it's going to take 7. And if it takes 2 or 3, right? Then you know you've got a winner, because they're like, you just saved, right? So you can evaluate and make it almost a game.
Yeah.
But also, the thing with that is understanding what your expectations are and knowing how long it's going to take. And sometimes you're prepared to take the risk too. Like, I'm like, okay, if somebody came and said, how much would you sell Big Wheel for? I probably would have a number that would be way higher than what it's worth by any business metrics.
Right.
Like any finance metrics, because A, I don't want to sell. B, I still have more stuff I want to do, like professionally with it. And I'm still too young for me to want to retire. But there's a number, like obviously there's a number.
I've always thought my number would be this astronomical number. Like, yeah, I'm always for sale. $20 million. You show up with $20 million. I'm out. No questions asked.
That's that $100 burger scenario.
Yeah, right. It totally is, right?
You're never going to find somebody that's
unless you do.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think understanding what your number is and why it's the number can then set you up to build a business that could get that number, perhaps, or come close, or allow you to come up with ideas on how to justify why you want a big number.
Right. And I think that there's a case to be made for a business owner to be able to sell their business through good old-fashioned salesmanship.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it's not about the numbers, it's the presentation.
Yeah.
It's how you present the business.
Yeah.
It's like, I know that's not the typical way people buy and sell businesses.
Yeah.
However, I do think that there's space for that in that conversation. It's like, I've got an expectation, say, of what this business is worth. Yeah. And I just know it's worth that much to me. And if I'm not going to get that, I'm not going to sell it.
Yeah.
And that's one way to look at it. I don't think it's a good way to look at it, maybe.
But you can,
what do you think?
It can go one way or the other. Like, it can go, I was glad I didn't sell.
Yeah.
And it could be, shoot, like me, I'm like, oh man, I thought about that for years. Like, why didn't I just sell?
Take that $3 million.
Well, then you just do something else. Your business, you've already gained some experience. I mean, if I sold my businesses, I wouldn't get back into business again, I don't think. But so then for me, that number needs to be fairly big, because it's got to take me to, the homeland, wherever that is, right? Either, I don't know where it is, but the end times.
The end of the road.
The end of the road. And also, what are you going to do with, A, what are you going to do with the money? B, what are you going to do with your time? So what else are you going to do with your time?
Collect butterflies.
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean,
and if you're having fun, life is about the journey. And, I always think about profit in a different way than dollars.
Yeah. Profit is lifestyle and time.
Like time is worth way more money. Like, and people don't value their time correctly. So I always, tell people, if I want to get off the couch, I need to make $100 an hour. No one's paying me $100 an hour to do anything right now, but that's a value. Like, so I've always valued my time, Like I've always put a number on it, and it's $100 an hour.
That
So
seems cheap.
if I'm going to do, thank you. So if I'm going to do something, I'm going to go, okay, well, this is worth $100 of an hour of my time. So it needs to be something I want to do. You know, it doesn't have to be something that's going to get me $100 an hour, but I should be doing something that's going to get me $100 an hour or this. And if I'm going to do this, then it has to be worth my time.
Right. Because time is money. If you can afford to take a week off, that's precious, right?
I mean, how many people look forward to their holidays and the time off, and it's amazing. So even if your number, so say you make X dollars a year in your business personally, right? And it covers your expenses and you're living on it, and that's fine. Then you're going to sell it. But it's only going to give you a 5-year runway based on, because usually business sell for 5 times.
Yeah, it's like 3 to 5, right?
Yeah, 3 to 5. So depending on what it is, whether it's a cash business, whether there's accounts receivable, or if it's a high growth business.
And so what you're saying for people who might not know, you take the profits of your annual profits of the company, you multiply them by 3 or 5 years.
That's right. Yeah, 3 or 5 times.
That's your sell price.
Yeah. Say, for example, your business makes $100,000 a year. So that
makes profit.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's not your net profit; it's your earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. EBITDA. So EBITDA is above the net profit, and you just take out what your tax exposure is, and the amortization. So if you've invested $1 million in this thing and you amortize it over 10 years, then $100K a year comes off your profit, basically. So if you make $200K, you're going to net out $100K, and then you're going to pay 20% in taxes. So your net's going to be $80,000. So it's 5 times the EBITDA number, not 5 times the net number. Right. So over time, you're going to have paid off everything. Like you're going to amortize it over the 10 years, then you pay more tax. Right. So your net number becomes bigger, and your EBITDA number is always the same, but the net number is what goes down based on your tax exposure and your amortization. Like if you open a new store, you're going to have more equipment that's going to have to be amortized out again.
Right.
So that number's, depending on how much investment you've done, the amortization number will be a big part of your profits. It's not cash.
Is that why businesses that have a lot of money like to expand, because they can just drop a lot of
pay for
money on equipment that they can then get their tax write off for the next 5 years or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. So then that's going to come off the amortization. So you invest in a building or you invest in a big expensive piece of equipment. So there's a lot of tax reasons to do that, and also business value to be created there, and also pay less taxes. So if you can grow your revenue with this piece of equipment, and then you also get to amortize that piece of equipment out over time, then that's why they do. Otherwise, if you just buy equipment to avoid paying taxes. Right?
But first of all, you have to be able to afford to buy equipment, or you have to go into debt to buy the equipment.
That's right.
In which case, you're paying interest on that debt to buy equipment, so that you reduce your tax load.
That's right. And so when you also look,
balance there, you got
total balance. And when you look at the EBITDA and you're looking at value selling your business, so say your EBITDA is $1 million, and based on your business, it's 5 times valuation. So you're going to be selling that business for $5 million, but you don't get $5 million. You have to take the debt off. Right. So say you have $1 million of debt, which would be reasonable at that thing. You would end up netting out $4 million. Right. Then when you're evaluating the decision to do that, you have to look at what the tax implications are. So everybody, has a one-time tax capital gains exemption, which is, I think right now it's like $1 million or $1.1 million or something. It goes up with inflation, I believe. And this is not tax advice. I'm not an accountant, but
and we're just making this up,
and we just make up the numbers all the time. So do not come back and say, "Oh, my accountant said that." That's fine. It could be, but this is general terms. So if you're going to sell, so then you look at what am I tax? So if I'm going to get $4 million out of it, so capital gains, they tax 50% of the gain, right? So if you're going to use your one-time tax exemption, because it's a one-time, so you want to use it for the biggest gain.
Right.
So if your business can achieve the $1 million one, then don't use it for $100K gain or $200K gain. So because it is a one-time capital gain.
And it's a huge savings.
It's a huge savings.
Yeah.
So then on this example, I would have sold it for $4 million. So I would have taken off $1 million because that's my capital gains exemption. So now it's $3 million, but it's 50% of $3 million. So I get taxed at $1.5 million. So if my tax rate is like 30%, assuming it is, then it'd be 30% on $1.5 million. So it would be $450,000 in tax. So on $4 million, I'd be paying $450K in tax. So I get 3.55.
Right.
So then I'm like, am I happy with 3.55? Would, and then you evaluate, well, if I'm paying myself, say you're paying yourself $200,000 a year. So in 5 years, you would have earned $1 million. So in 10 years, you would have earned $2 million, but you're going to be paying tax on it.
Yep.
So maybe it's at the end of the time, maybe it's 1.5 million.
Yeah.
So would you take today dollars, 3.5 million in this example, and have that for the next 10 years, or would you earn a 1.5 million over the next 10 years and sell it for what number 10 years from now? And
that's just going by the numbers.
Yeah,
so
just by the straight numbers.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with your life or what you want to do.
Or if you want to do it.
Yeah,
for
your
another 5
time
years
or how painful the job is.
Yeah.
It'd be like me becoming a professional poker player. No way in heck would I ever do that because it's painful.
Yeah.
Doing it as a hobby is painful. It's joy too. There's joy. Don't get me wrong.
There's joy and pain.
But it's not like it. Yeah. And it's similar to being in the restaurant business,
right?
To some degree.
It is.
Right? Because
it's a
is,
painful industry sometimes.
But then
Sometimes.
it is. And there's the reward is the passion part of it. Like dealing with the customers, creating amazing experiences for people and yourself. That is where, when we talk about profit, and this is what I'm very passionate about it, because profit in business, people view like it's black and white. And in this capitalist society, everything's black and white.
Yeah.
Oh, how much money do you make? How much money is it worth? What are you selling it for? All this stuff. Okay, well, that's in literal terms, the idea of business is to make a profit. But where does all the other profit come from? The profit of pride in ownership, the profit in lifestyle, the profit in those experiences you have with your customers. And this is one of the things in the food industry. There's so much joy because you're literally, when you're in the heat of it and you're everything is running well and your customers are happy, you're happy. It's almost like having a big family dinner every night where you're just with your friends and everybody's in sync. At the end there, you have this rush. Wow, that was so successful. And that is the adrenaline of owning, or the profit, I would say, of owning a restaurant. Because at the end of the day, we have to fight for every penny tooth and nail. And then also, deal with people saying, "Oh, your prices are too high," or whatever. Meanwhile,
if you
literally
took
fighting.
the monetary part out of the restaurant industry, it would be the best.
Yeah,
because it is our outcome, our perceived goals are to please people.
Yeah,
I mean, that is profitable.
Yeah.
That's human profit.
Well, and that's where the more you care about your business, the more profit you get out of it in that regard.
Yeah.
Like it's not a quantifiable black and white dollar value, but it's about filling your bucket and your satisfaction, and it's immediate gratification.
Yeah.
That's the one beauty of it, is when somebody eats a burger or drinks a coffee and they go, this sucks. You immediately get the feedback.
Yeah.
Or they're like, man, this is awesome. I love this. Thank you. Then you're like, wow, that feels good. Like, where can you get that feeling? Like, money is such a short-term thing. Like, even if you sold your business for $3 million, like, then you'd be like, oh, okay. The next month you'd be like, oh, okay, great. And then you'd literally be like, just have money, like, which is soulless.
And then you don't have that identity.
Yeah. And all of a sudden now you're wandering around going, okay, well, I got all this time, but I'm not getting anything else.
Yeah. I think about that. If I were to ever sell, could I make that personal move away from 2% Jazz? I mean, I'm so connected to it that for years, I thought I probably couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Because I'm too intimately connected with it. It's part of my identity.
Well, there would be a huge hangover after. And I think that's also what has to come into the calculation of it is, who do you want to be and where do you want to spend your time and what you want to do? if you have something else to do that interests you, or you want to, I don't know, climb up Mount Everest and spend 2 years training to do that or whatever, then great. Or spending all that money, perfect. You have a reason to go and do that. But if you don't, and then you're just going to be left with a bunch of money, it's going to be probably a little empty.
Yeah. And it's not going to last.
It's not going to last.
And
but there's also other reasons to sell. Like we're talking about selling for $4 million. But what happens if you're selling because you just can't make it? Like the struggle is too real. And then it's like, okay, well, what am I going to sell it for? There's always a price.
At that point, you get what you can.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
and then it's going to be really
depends on your sense of urgency. Probably. You know, and sometimes also it's selling when I've got people that I'm involved with in the restaurant in Las Vegas, and hopefully they don't listen to this, but frankly, they need to sell. They need to get out. It's the juice ain't worth the squeeze. Like the road ahead is too, and I know this. I see it. I can predict the future in this particular type of business because of my experience and the challenges. So it's like sometimes, but she's so determined, and I love the passion. And part of me kind of breaks my heart because I'm literally like, I could see her, or them, I should say. She's the main one, but just running headfirst into a brick wall, and I could see the wall, or it's like,
And can they see it, or are they? And do they care that it's coming, or are they just so determined?
They want it so bad.
Yeah, right.
Right, and that's where I appreciate that. And this is where the judgment of knowing when to take the deal, like based on the subject we're talking about, is knowing when to get out. And sometimes you're getting out with less of a loss than you would if you stayed in, Yeah. And so that's a gain too. There's a value in that, because if you can get out and get maybe 50 cents on the dollar back, for example, so say you have 100,000 in, and right now, if you just shut it down, you're going to be negative 100,000. If you sell it for 50 cents on the dollar, you'll have 50K. Yeah. That's 50K. That's a profit.
Yeah.
Because all that other sunk cost is gone.
It's gone.
You can't think about the 100K. You need to think about the 50, which then you can figure out how you're going to pay off the other 50 down the road. But if you stay in and all of a sudden the number becomes 200, then all of a sudden, the bank closes the doors or the landlord closes the doors, then you're really at zero and you've got 200, and you've also killed another year or whatever time length you've done on that. And what have you done? When I shut down my import business, I sold the scraps that was left, and I was happy to do it. And, there's enough value there to get some money out, but it took me 2 years to get out of it. And I'm like, well, what could I have done? Like maybe if I sold it for 50K less, I could have been out of it 2 years ago. Right. So then I could have been on and just turned the page instead of going through this painful process of suffering through it.
Which has taught you that you don't want to do that again.
No.
And so you won't. So you'll do things to avoid it. So this place in Vegas that's not listening to this, can I assume that they got into this business because they were super passionate about what they're doing, and it's their baby, and they have a future in mind for their baby, their business.
Yeah.
And anything about quitting that business before it reaches those goals is just not in the cards for them. They just don't even see it as an option.
Yeah. Basically, they don't see it as an option, but I think more importantly, what they're not seeing is the risk component. So I think this is where the valuation or evaluating the risk, often entrepreneurs always put all their value on the opportunity.
Right.
And that's why they overvalue their businesses, because they're like, oh, this is going to be so good. We're going to change the world. We're going to do this. That's great. You need to have that enthusiasm.
Absolutely.
But I think the more successful ones properly balance out the risk and the downside. And that's why the comparison with poker is so important, because you are evaluating the risk. Like, what does my opponent have? What are the chances of me winning this hand? And it's numbers, it's math. So my hand against this person's hand, even though if you don't know the exact hand, but you know a range of hand possibilities, then you can go, okay, I think I'm a 60% favorite against this person's range. So, but I'm going to lose 40% of the time, right? So in business, when you're looking at, what you're investing in, how much time, and what you think the opportunity is. Well, look at the risk. Like, what is the risk? When I had my import business, I was competing against General Electric,
Right?
like these behemoths, and they were well funded. They also would hedge currency, so they had so much opportunity. But that was all my risk.
Nuclear bombs.
They could.
And you weren't doing that.
No,
right? Thank God.
they could just blast me apart, right? They could literally just like look at me and go, puh, flick me like a fly, and so. But I'm gung ho. I'm building. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna take over the world. I got a bunch of different products, but you're just adding a whole bunch of risk, even more risk. Yeah. But you're overvaluing the opportunity, and then not knowing when to get out. Like it's the combination of all that kind of stuff. Is not knowing when to quit. When we talk about the book Quit, and then the risk is the thing. And I'm like, to them, I'm like, guys, you realize, like, there's no help coming. Like there is no, the merits of the business as it stands now is what you need to deal with. And there's a, $10,000 or $15,000 a month gap or whatever it is. How's that getting filled? Yeah. Right. So sure, the shareholders can kick in and all that kind of stuff, but they don't have unlimited, pockets. Plus they're also looking at what the upside, like how long is it going to take to get the money back?
They want it back. They don't want to keep putting into it.
Yeah.
No one does.
When is it going to turn and how much does it have to get? But they're like just in it and just like working and we can do this. And, having been through all that before, like I get them, like I understand it. And that's why it breaks my heart because I'm literally looking at them and I'm just going, I see your future, and if I was a betting man, which I am, I could guarantee there's probably a 98% I'm right that.
And 2%.
And 2%.
I've only ever been involved in hospitality businesses. So from my perspective, I know how passionate someone can be behind their business. Yeah. In your experience with both two different kinds of businesses, do you find the passion the same, like the identity behind your import business, say, compared to your hospitality business? Did you put the same amount of your own self, your own juice,
such a good question.
Own passion, and do you feel that attachment to that business as much as you do to a hospitality business?
No, I think the answer to that is no, and I'll explain why. Like every business is obviously different.
Sure. But
every business interacts with people. So in your customer bases, right? Your suppliers, whatever. So it's generally your happiness and success comes from the people you're dealing with, not necessarily from you. So in the restaurant and hospitality business, people are coming to you to have an experience.
And there's maybe more people involved generally, right?
Yeah.
More employees.
There's more employees. You've got, a couple hundred interactions a day, for example.
And they're in person.
And they're in person, right? And they're in your face, and they're right there. So you really get into the weeds of it with them, and that's where the joy is, and that's where spending your time, provided you enjoy it. So in the import business, I'm dealing with these behemoth companies like Home Depot, Walmart, Costco. They don't care. So, they could just flick you like a bug. And if you don't do exactly what they say, you're done. And then you're dealing with a supplier where you're having to negotiate the best possible price, but you also want the quality. And then you're dealing with you're dealing with all this, like all these inanimate people or objects or organizations.
Yeah. That feels to me like more pure business science.
Yes.
Compared to hospitality, which is very impure. There's so many other variables that can influence your experience and
totally their mood going in that day influences it. And then you're dealing with the human component of it is like, how is the server or the person that you're dealing with at the restaurant or the coffee shop or whatever in dealing with so then you've got something that's totally out of your control. The business side on the other thing is really black and white. Like how much you're going to sell, how much you're going to cost to get there. And then you just got to hold your nose. And that's why I got out of the business.
Okay.
I literally was in England doing the same thing as I was doing in Canada. And I just woke up one day and go, this is soul crushing. I hate it. I hate the people I'm dealing with. I hate the emptiness. Yeah, I was supposed to be there for 3 months and I booked a plane home that next day. And I flew home, and within 5 months, I'd sold the business.
Wow. So are you saying it probably takes two different types of people to run those two different kinds of
100%.
businesses, or to enjoy and to be successful at doing
Yeah.
that. Because I can't imagine myself really enjoying running a business that's so black and white and so scientifically business, like textbook business. Like I just don't, that's not how my brain works, but I love business and I love the idea of running businesses, but people businesses maybe more. And I never really thought about that till
And I think
today.
it's certain types of personalities. And I think, you know, when you look at the restaurant and hospitality, there's a lot of creative people there that maybe don't necessarily have the business background or acumen. And hopefully they've either learned it or they partner with people that do, because it's a very important component, especially in our industry, because of how hard it is to make money.
Right.
So understanding all the different strategies and techniques to navigate different things, navigate when you don't have cash, navigate banking relationships, navigating leases, navigating how to deal with your accountant and your lawyer and all those things. You know, like what you care about when you're doing this business, if you're a chef or a cook or the creative, is what you're creating, what the customer experience is. Usually you undervalue your product, and that's basically going to impact your business success. So, and how hard you're going to struggle and what you can pay your staff and all those things that we care about. On the other side of it, in other industries like the import business, it's really just numbers. But then you also have to deal with the fact that this person you're dealing with, like often a buyer would just change, and they would purposely change buyers so that they could disconnect relationships with people and get a new set of eyes. So you could, and it's happened to me. So I got an order, like a $500,000 order from Home Depot from this one buyer. We placed the order with the factory. New buyer comes in and says, no, cancel that. And I'm like, what do you mean?
No contract? Or
well, none of these people do contracts.
Oh, okay.
Like maybe the big guys, like if they're going to do some of the big, like, I don't know, like GE, for example, like they're not going to be finding another GE, like just like us in the food business, there's Cisco and GFS. Yeah. So you're like, they both have us. And if they both just decided to say, screw you, then we just go, okay, screw me, like, all right. How are we going to do this? Because there's no choice there, for vendors like I'm small. So, and that's why there's incentive to try to, grow as many products in there as possible to become bigger so that, they don't just kick you out. Right. But then you're also selling your product lower to get it shelf space. Then they're also taking marketing dollars. And there's so many things that affect the number that they just, here, we owe you $1 million. We're going to pay you $800. Because they took off $200,000 in chargebacks and marketing dollars. We put you in this flyer. I didn't want to be in the flyer, dude. Like, why'd you put me in the flyer? Well, you have to. So then you're just saying, okay, $800K. And then when people return this product to the store, they send it back to you. The product works. They deduct it off the invoice. And I'd be like, now I have like a warehouse full of this product that works perfectly, but it's been returned.
That's why I never got into trying to sell equipment, equipment, because they all break. Yeah. No matter how good they are, they're going to have a problem, and I don't want to deal with that problem. I don't want to deal with the returns.
And there's a lot of people that, or maybe some people that are listening to our show that are in a lot of people are in that business or in other businesses, right? And I think that's fine. If you can find your passion, if you got an expertise, then great. I think, where if you can't make, buckets of money, because buckets of money can also buy you time. It can also buy you lifestyle. It will never buy you happiness, but it will buy you financial security.
It will buy you all the things that will give you happiness, though.
Perhaps.
Like
time. Yeah, for sure.
Experience.
For sure.
I mean,
for us, we don't have that luxury because you're really doing this for passion. Absolutely. And, there is models like, fast food burger chains are probably worth more than, I know it's worth more than my one Italian restaurant. You know what I mean? As far as, economic opportunity, market value, if somebody's looking to buy, there's economies of scale, there's systems, there's, versus with somebody. But somebody could value that one business well because they want to own an Italian restaurant.
Well, and they want to own that one.
And they want to own that one because it means something. Yeah. Or They just want to just buy it to have that location. Like there's lots of different reasons why somebody would want.
Yeah, maybe they
that
proposed to their partner in that restaurant. And now they want to own it.
None of us have the idea that, if we ever sold Zambrie's, that we'd all be rich and be able to retire. That's not a question. But then they're like, well, oh, wow. Because even when I talk about the value of businesses like Zambrie's or restaurants, they're like, oh, that doesn't seem very much. And I'm like, well, you know what? It's not.
See, I would say $10 million for Zambrie's.
Okay, done.
You know what?
Done.
My next 10 million is yours. My next free 10 million.
Yeah, your next free 10 million.
But I look at Zambrie's, and I've got a history of going there that goes back to the beginning, and I have so many nice experiences there. The value in my eye would be so much more than the book value. So much more.
100%.
And I'm not even interested in buying it. I would be heartbroken for you if you didn't get anything over 10 million, because I'd be like, no, because Zambrie's is worth that much. But that's just a happy customer talking.
Well, but even as a happy owner or somebody who's like, we're in our 25th year, is like, 25 years, and this is all that we could get if we tried selling it.
Right.
But I don't look at it that way, because I think of all of the joy and pleasure and value and profit, whether it be literal or figurative or whatever, over the last 25 years
that you've already spent. Basically,
we've already spent.
If those kinds of profits,
and guess what? We've lived a really good life. We've provided, I don't know how many, like thousands of jobs over those 25 years.
Yeah.
It allowed us to get into Big Wheel Burger, which we probably wouldn't be in, which again, we have another 100 employees that turns over every year, it seems like. So, you've got another 1,000 employees or 1,000 people that you've touched or given opportunities to. So there's a huge value. And, we're not rich, but we've got a good life. Like, we've got a lot of time.
And over those 25 years, you haven't been able to put all the untraditional value in the bank, because you can't put that in the bank. You put it in your memory banks.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's kind of it.
Oh, it's in your heart too.
Well, I think that's where some of the memory comes from. Or it triggers the other memory, right? But it's not the monetary value that you can put in the bank. And so something that you can see adding up, I think, has more popular value, or it's more perceived value. But when you've lived those 25 years doing that business, then you know what it's like. You know what your bank account's sitting at.
Yeah.
It's not the accumulation of all that profit in your bank, right?
Yeah, that's right.
You have all those memories, and you've touched, like you say, thousands of people because of it.
And there's value in the business. So at the end of the day, if we were to sell it, there would be some money there to say, oh, that was a success, or we've got that for our retirement or whatever. So there is, at the end of the day, there is something. And that's the other component of deciding when to sell. So even though I didn't get the 3 million, I still got the 250. And then I had all those lessons, and it could have gone the other way. Yeah. It could have either maybe only gone down $1 million, and I would have got 2 million for it or whatever, and then had that. So you never know. The journey sometimes is more important than focusing on the outcome.
Well, and in retrospect, you can look back and you can say, well, what if I had taken that $3 million? Would you be here right now? Would you have had the life that you've had? Or would you have gone and done something with your $3 million and your life would have been completely different? I mean, you can't know, but
that is such an irrelevant part of it. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm here for. Bringing up the most relevant parts of life.
Oh, like you brought up the most irrelevant, point.
And then I really want your honest opinion. Oh, it is really irrelevant. Okay, I got it.
Well, because you can't change it, and you never know what it is. So you can't, like, living with regret. That's the other component.
Well, that is
and you can't let it affect your future decisions. But I've given advice to my brother owns a very successful business in Northern Alberta. I'm, a business advisor. I'm an investor in it as well. And, he's built an amazing business. So we always talk about, okay, well, what would you sell it for? What would be the number to go? Right. Like, and this is a business that is very like black and white. There isn't a lot of, obviously with the staff, we have like 200 employees, and, there's a lot of joy that comes out of the day to day as well. But it is a very thankless. You're dealing with like Fortune 500 companies, and there is, and there's safety issues with it, and there's lots of things that can go in the global economy that's a factor. So knowing when to get out of that is a tricky thing, because you're talking big money for him. Would be life-changing money if he sold, but at the same time, is like, well, why don't I want to sell? Like, I'm 40 years old. I've got 20 more years to work and all that kind of stuff. So it's interesting being on the outside. Obviously, I would have a little bit of financial impact based on his decision, but it's his decision. Like, I'll just go with whatever he does. Like, all I can do is advise. And I've said sometimes taking the money is the right thing, even if you're young, just based on my experience, because of that little shadow of regret that is insignificant and not important.
Because if you do, you're not going to do anything in your life. You're going to live in a dark cloud.
Totally.
Right?
Or
dark
just be dissatisfied, or the money gets spent. I think of, over the years, all the money that has flown through my hands and, opportunities or sales or, any reasons why it's come, and none of it is left. It's left maybe little fingerprints on me, but it's not like I have what I have, and it's just there. Like, it doesn't matter what I had yesterday or 10 years ago or 20 years ago, or what I did or decisions I made, right? Like, all they are is experiences and learning opportunities. And how am I going to apply it to make my life better today, or better for the people that I'm with? And then also make better decisions, because everything that you've done in the last 2 decades or 3 decades inform what you're going to do today when it comes to making decisions.
Sure. You got to draw from something.
Yeah. Right? And that's where the other comparison to poker is, the successful poker players make correct decisions over and over and over, repeated again. So the more correct decisions you can make in a row, the more successful you're going to be.
Sure.
So, without those big gaffes, like, how, when we opened the guild, like, it was on paper, it looked like a great idea. The food and the product looked great and everything was good, and it was such an amazing space. I mean, I ended up losing $300,000 or $400,000 on that.
But you know what? No one will remember that. No one will, except for you. It's like,
but it's informed how I move forward. You know.
Well, I think I think it was Arnold Schwarzenegger said, he was being interviewed and he was asked, why did you make like so many movies? And he says, well, because I won't bother with the accent. I'll save you with the Arnold accent. Okay, so he was saying
you're about to try.
I was going to, and I thought twice not to.
Okay, okay, it's good.
And stop kicking me under the table. I won't do it.
Oh, you won't do it. Yeah.
So he was saying he does so many movies because there's so many. There's going to be bad ones, and most of his movies are bad.
Yeah,
but you don't remember them. No one remembers his bad movies. Think about Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. What are the ones that you think about? They're mega hits.
Yeah, exactly.
Think of any bad movie he's been in. Can you think of one off the top of your head? Like, can you think of 3 bad movies that he's been in?
No,
but he's made so many bad movies, right? Yeah. And so, when you try things out and you do things,
you're going to make mistakes.
You're going to make mistakes, and it doesn't matter because if you didn't make those mistakes, you wouldn't have the base to show off your successes.
Well, that's a very it's such an interesting point.
As much as I don't like Arnold for a lot of reasons, he's really interesting.
So super interesting. so super interesting. But that comment about like how many, like, can you name 3 bad Arnold Schwarzenegger movies?
Right.
I'm like, well, I can't off the top of my head. I can think of a bunch of good ones.
Right.
So
because people just forget about the bad stuff. Yeah,
the bad stuff. So I guess as a business person or entrepreneur, thinking about, like, if you live in the weeds of your mistakes, then no one's going to remember your successes, because that's where they're going to find you.
That is where they're
in the mud.
Unless you keep making things.
Keep doing it, keep moving forward, keep turning the page, and treat all of those as lessons, and then don't regret. I mean, if you just trust that the decisions you made in the moment were the right ones in the moment. Yeah. Because in hindsight, you always know.
I've closed so many cafes that no one will have any idea about, because they won't remember the ones that I opened that were failures.
But
they will remember the ones that were really good.
Yeah.
Right? Like I've closed so many bad cafes that I've opened, and no one remembers that. I barely remember it. Sometimes people remind me.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember your kiosk at the Entertainer video store? It's like, I had forgotten about that.
Yeah.
Actually, thanks so much for the memories.
Wow. And I think, if you're evaluating your success is measuring the closures to, maybe you've got 2 or 3, all you need is 1 or 2 successes to wipe out, 10 or 15 failures.
Absolutely. Because people look for the good. They look for the gold, right?
I think that is, human nature.
Yeah.
And I also think it allows you to be happy, because I stress about, my friends in Vegas and what they're trying, because I've been there, and I don't wish that on them, but it's such an important lesson,
It's
like
a lesson you don't wish
No,
on anyone,
you don't
but
want it.
if they're going to go through it, at least you hope they learn.
I just wish they were a little younger, because you know what I mean? Because making those mistakes at 30 or 40 is different than making them at, well, I guess they're in that range, but 20 to 30 is different than making when you're 50 to 60.
Yeah.
Even though Colonel Sanders started KFC when he was 60, I believe.
Did he really?
Yeah. So, there is, and I think Harrison Ford started his acting career at 40. So,
what?
Yeah, I believe, or 35 or something.
He was older. In American
he'd already had
or whatever.
Yeah, he'd already had a.
Well, he was a carpenter.
Carpenter, that's right. So, and maybe, so those, it might have been 35 or 30. I don't know the exact. We can Google. We just throw numbers.
No, he was 42.
Yeah, I think he was 42. I think he was 40. He was in late 30s or early 40s when he started his success. And maybe he did American Graffiti and then the Star Wars. He was 40 when he did Star Wars, whatever. But learning the mistakes early is better, but I still think there's huge value in learning those mistakes later. And you're always going to have some wisdom too.
Yeah. I mean, you're always going to learn. And if you're not, then you're done anyway. If you're done learning, you're done life.
Yeah. And that's where the other thing when you look at profit is, enjoying the ride and the journey and the challenges. Like sometimes it's like gut wrenching where you're just like, oh my goodness, what did I do? Or why did I do this or whatever? But that's where all life experience is, like all the interactions and you're feeling a lot of emotions, and I think getting $4 million and then just having money in the bank has no emotion, and it's empty.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that life and joy is.
I mean, sure, give me $4 million, I'll put it in the bank, and I'll feel empty. We'd love that.
In 3 or 4 days, you probably would be. I mean, sure, you're going to take a picture of your bank account slip with the balance on it, and you're going to carry it around for a day or two, going,
yeah, look at me.
But how long is that going to last? 4 or 5 days, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe, and then you're going to be thinking about something else because you're human, and there's shiny objects everywhere.
So we have basically the next 6 weeks all planned out. And if anybody wants to shoot us an email, can do that at Calen at bigwillburger.com. If they have anybody in our industry or anybody interesting that we want to have on.
And may I say,
where'd we go wrong?
Where
you were barista.
I was too busy making espresso and fucking cleaning shit up to.
You could have done what Elon Musk did, and you just said this coffee has like a technology that's going to change the world.
Right.
And
I think that's what Andrew did.
Yeah.
I think.
That's what he got.
That's what he did. He just.
You got to be in technology,
right? Damn it. But I've always said that being a barista is truly it's a job that is a launching pad for whatever you want to do in your life.
Yes.
And I've always said that.
And you chose to be a coffee roaster.
Yep.
And he chose to be a billionaire.
And we each make our own decisions.
Exactly. Each to our own.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're happier.
And were we talking about regrets earlier and not having any? I certainly have none.
And how useless that regrets are.
Totally useless.
Yeah, total waste of time.
Absolutely. Well, it's so nice to be back in the studio. Nice to see Kyle back here in the empty studio, except for Kyle. Wow, no one else. He came back just to do this for us.
He did.
Summertime's dry around here.
Yeah, it really is.
And so nice to see you. And
it's good to see you.
Being across the table again, man.
Let's keep her going.
All right, brother.
And maybe we'll try to do more promotion for her show.
Yeah. Well,
now we got Lindsay.
It can be, well, if you're listening to this, you already know where to find us. So,
yeah. Anybody else, whatever.
The Check Plus, Spotify, Apple, 2% Jazz, evidently.
Yeah.
It's a good place to find it.
And our social media.
We have a YouTube channel, the Bread and Butter
breadandbuttercollective.com. We have a link, YouTube link.
There we go.
The videos are posted there. And
all
we have the audio as well on that as well.
Yeah, we've got all of them on there, don't we?
We have most of them. Yeah.
Okay.
But the best place to check is the Check Plus app. Download it.
Yeah.
Where you get your apps. The Check Plus has not only our show, but other Check shows.
Yeah. Lots of great Vancouver Island content.
Vancouver Island, BC content. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So download the Check Plus. I have it on that's how I see most of our stuff, because I can just go, our faces are on there.
Oh,
it's almost like we're
you screenshot. Is that your screenshot?
No,
no, it's not.
No.
Oh, it's there you go. It's just you.
The big wheel.
It's you at the beach.
It's you at the beach.
Are you still swimming every morning, by the way?
Well, the tides are against us.
Oh, okay.
So afternoons now.
Oh,
so the afternoons are a little bit harder. Like I was going down at 7 a.m, and part of the thing, and they're like, well, you can just walk out, but it's really kind of mucky and seaweedy, and
you kind of want to dive in, not go to toe.
I don't dive in.
Inch by inch.
No, I want to. I just want to just walk in. But
you do want to just walk in?
I only want to walk in like 10 feet and then have it up to my neck, and then I'm good.
Oh, see, I want to go to my ankles, and then I want to go head in because I want to get colder progressively.
I don't like getting my head cold or my hands cold, so I like just my body.
You wear 2 kind of gloves when you go?
I don't wear gloves. I just keep my hands out of the water.
Is that all you wear?
No, I got swim trunks on, bro. What are you trying to do here?
Yeah, I'm just trying to make it more interesting. That's all.
I guess we're probably more like, mature audiences only. No, we're not G-rated.
We should be G-rated.
We could be.
I try really hard to watch my mouth.
I swore earlier today.
I think I did too, but that must be the first time all season because we're really
all season. Yeah, we got one show. This season.
This season. All right, man.
Okay, thanks, buddy.
Be nice, everybody.
Be real kind.
Oh, I will.
Bread and Butter Collective's membership includes the following local businesses: 2% Jazz, Bunny's Kitchen, Buzz Coffee House, Eagle-Ite, Big Wheel Burger, Blue Mountain Solutions, Bodega Tapas Wine Bar, Eva Schnitzel House, Farmsgate Foods and Catering, Victoria Chocolate and Company, Drum Roaster Coffee, Habit Coffee, Foo Asian Street Food, the Culinary Arts Program at Camosun, Cafe Fantastico, Fall Epi, Harold Street Brewworks, Hey Happy, House of Botang, Nikkei Ramen Ya, Jenny Marie's Cracker Company, La Pasta, La Rue Patisserie, Mocha House, Part and Parcel, Poco a Pinto Bar, Pizzeria Prima Strada, Keating Pizza, Roast, Table 9 Consulting, Sherwood Cafe and Bar, Sweets by Selena, The Collective Wine Bar and Kitchen, The Drake, Tapa Bar, The Nimble Bar Company, Ruth and Dean, The Whole Beast, The Wienery, Spoon's Diner, Truffles-Inspired Catering, and Zambries.
To hear more from the Bread and Butter Collective, go to checknews.ca/podcasts on Check Plus, or find us on your favorite podcasting platform.